Good morning to everybody, and a particular thank you to Danny Jordaan for joining us as the Legal Resources Centre in a conversation with ourselves and colleagues from other organisations in South Africa, and to Jay Naidoo for agreeing to facilitate what we hope will be a very enlightening conversation and a dynamic one. As you all know, we were looking towards this event in order to hold a conversation about the impact of mega sporting events on countries, and particularly in relation to human rights issues. And we're doing this firstly to reflect on our own experience, but also as part of a conversation which we know will be held with colleagues in Brazil next month, where, as everybody knows, there are two mega sporting events that are coming up in Rio in 2014 and 2016. So without any further introduction from my side, as the National Director of the Legal Resources Centre, I just wanted again to say thank you to all of the people here for being part of this event. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Janet, for that introduction. This is a conversation, so we'll keep it free-flowing, but I thought, Danny in particular, just to introduce a perspective on mega sports. You know, the mega sports events like the Olympics, like the FIFA World Cup, are really big business. And, you know, we see a lot of the blurring of the lines between how we viewed amateur sport compared to what is professional sport. And today, if we look at mega sport events, they are awash with corporate sponsorships, spectacular revenues from TV rights, you know. And so the ordinary citizen really struggles to make sense of the billions of dollars that surrounds an event like this, and particularly the extremely poor, of what is the real benefit to them. So I think to start off the conversation would be, given your role in the FIFA World Cup, an extraordinarily successful World Cup that we had. Winning it in the first place was a big competition. But what is the cost and benefit to a country, and more particularly in the context of the discussion around human rights and development, what is the impact or the benefit for ordinary people, the poor? So perhaps we could start there.
No, thank you very much, Jay. And it's just wonderful to see you again and to see Janet. I don't know when you left Parliament. I left in 1997, soon after we completed the Constitution. I think you left...
When Mandela left.
Yeah, we left with Mandela and we never went back. Because he was not going to go back. But to come back to the question of what you've raised, the question of the poor in relation to mega events. The fact of the matter is that instead of promoting a mega event, promoting the rights, the human rights of people, mega events historically has been used to cover up. And whether you start with the 1936 Olympics in Germany to give an acceptable face to the Nazis, or in 1978 Argentina, soon after the coup in Argentina with the military junta. And in spite of the fact that 11,000 people disappeared, which were called the subversives in Argentina in 1978, the World Cup went ahead. Fortunately or unfortunately, Argentina won the World Cup. And so they said the radicals, the Peronistas, the workers, the rich, they celebrated in the streets together. And so one of the things that World Cup has in fact done is to give an acceptable face to the oppression there. But I think just the opposite happened, is that it did expose the real face in Argentina. In this country too, in South Africa, after the second state of emergency in 1985, the government came out with what was called the normal sport policy, and then embarked on what was called rebel tours. And they argued the same thing, that Jay and his friends were giving the wrong impression of what was happening in the country. And so they must come here and play these major events in South Africa so that you can see the truth of the matter. And I think some of our sports organizations were part of this. All of a sudden at that time you saw, for those who were cozy with the government, massive sponsorship, promotion of black sports with huge sums of money, and those who did not toe the line, no sponsorship. So that historically has been the position, so I cannot say, yeah, that mega sport is the friend of the promotion of human rights, because it is simply not, it's not been the case. I think in South Africa, of course, the origin of our own bid has its roots in 1994. In fact, the first election in April of 94, 27th of April, in September of 94, we wrote a letter to FIFA to register South Africa's intention to bid for the 2006 World Cup in 1994 already. And what were the issues at the time? Issues was about building a new nation, because there was a so-called brain drain. Those who feared Madiba and ran to Oliver Tambo. Then I think it was still John Smuts. Before it became Oliver Tambo, they wanted to be out. They didn't want, they were still comfortable with John Smuts Airport, and before that changed, they wanted to get out. So there was those issues. The democracy was described as fragile. There was infrastructure stagnation, no investment in infrastructure. In fact, the first focus of the governments in '94 was deficit reduction. That was the focus. So you'll see that when we talk about the first bid, it was about nation building, strengthening democracy, rebranding the country, making sure that we understand that this is an African country. Because when South Africans at that time talked about going to holiday, they meant they're going to go to the airport and fly all over Africa and go outside the African continent on holiday. You're not going to Africa. And those things were seen by the African continent, that you were actually, even if you're the southernmost tip of the continent, you're really part of Europe. You're not part of the continent. So all of those issues were important. Crime was the big issue, to seek investment, to create a safer environment, to look at building stadium infrastructure, because what apartheid did was to build rugby and cricket stadiums and not a single football stadium. FNB was an attempt by football to build its own stadium, well, half built. We ran out of money, but we were determined that that stadium must be complete to be the first stadium built in the name of football. So those were the issues in the first bid. Of course, we lost that bid, and in the second bid, we had COSATU representative on the board to represent the unions. And when there were disputes, and of course we understood that in the construction phase, it's an ideal opportunity to get, and because we were closer to listening to the real wages of construction workers, we felt that if this is an opportunity to deal with these issues, so be it. And I remember in one, after there was a huge strike, we went to sit at the CCMA, and we sat there until 1 o'clock and said to the construction companies that we want a settlement before we leave this place. And we sat there from 8 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock the next morning. And I think it's the first time that where two parties are so far apart that we left, and the unions never say they were happy. shouldn't be, because even that settlement would not address adequately the gap that was there. So major events is also an opportunity for those who have, and whether it is the trade unions, whether it is the movement of the landless people as we've seen here, or any other cause, it is an opportunity, a platform to raise these causes. And that is what we try to do in this delivering of this World Cup, to be aware of those challenges. So what we've done, in terms of the Legacy One, we worked with the program of Kick It Out. It's polio, and former football players like Abedi Pele, George Weah, they were part of that program to go to the continent and to make sure that mothers would take their children to get the necessary immunization against polio. There was a question of United Against Malaria, that every 30 seconds on the continent, a baby will die from malaria simply because they don't have the money to buy the net. And the Ghana team in the World Cup, as you may have seen, supported the program, and it was running on It Is in the Net, to buy nets and to distribute nets so that when they sleep that they have a net over them. And so that was on the health side. On the education, you know, we had this project of One Goal project, education for all, because again on the continent, out of the 70 million kids who are not at school, 40 million on the continent, and almost 60% or 70% of them are girls not going to school, simply because there's no school to go to. So this project wanted to address those issues. Then we had the 20 centers for 2010. These centers, one is in Khayelitsha, one is here in Alexandra, in Rwanda, in Mali. These centers are running programs, HIV and AIDS education, health promotion, and other programs that's run so that kids will come to play football, but will be also tested and be given counseling and support around a healthier lifestyle. So these are some of the things that we've done. Of course, other programs, there was the Win in Africa with Africa's $120 million was invested to build academies on the continent. And so I can go on with it. But the reality is, in terms of global football, that I think the situation has become worse on the continent. Because now you have, in Europe, in the leagues, 47% of players playing in Europe come from Africa and South America. You may have seen that Chelsea in 2005 played with not a single English player. Well, some would say it's good, others say it's bad, and you find Aston Villa with one player. But it is what happened to the rest of those players, those that you don't see on the field, who doesn't make it. There was a child center in Belgium where those who drop out, they all leave the continent hoping to be a big star, and then they don't make it. And they end up in the back streets, gone, forgotten, and struggling. And many of them would plead for money just to go back home. So there is that problem, and in the leagues itself. And whether you go to Spain, I can tell you now, the league will be won either by Barcelona or Real Madrid. If you go to England, you know the league will be won by Manchester United or Manchester City or maybe Arsenal. If you come to South Africa, you know the league is going to be won by either Chiefs or Pirates, maybe Sundowns, and maybe SuperSport. No one else is going to win the league. Because the others, they must just play to avoid relegation. And this is that the leagues have actually become uncompetitive. And the gap between rich and poor in society is reflected in rich and poor clubs and rich and poor players, and that divide is worsening. So sport mirrors what's happening in society. So I don't think we must expect a different outcome from major events when in fact there is no requirement on the host nation in terms of human rights. It is just the consciousness and the awareness of those who organize. In South Africa, you know that in Athens they moved the ethnic minority there to vote for the Athens Olympics. In China, it was the migrant workers that they removed. In Sydney, for the Sydney Olympics, they moved the original people there. They call them, the Aussies call them the Aborigines, were removed. In South Africa, I don't think we moved any community, save to say there was a problem in Nelspruit, Mbombela, where the school was flattened. And that, I think, is not a function really of a conscious decision. And I'm not going to sit here to say, well, it was the local government there who took the decision, because it is their responsibility. But really what was happening in Mpumalanga as a province, both politically and otherwise, and a lot of these things will come out now, that there is a court case before us coming out. So there, I think it was group and individual interests which led to that position where the school was flattened, when there are many other options in terms of where to build the stadium. But I think it was vested interests rather than considering whether or not it was the ideal site. Other than that, I think we did not, as they did in Argentina, build huge walls around the informal settlement or to hide them. In fact, in this country, fortunately, you cannot hide the informal settlement, because when you fly in to Cape Town, you actually fly over them. Nothing you can do. You fly to my hometown in Nelson Mandela Bay or Port Elizabeth, I fly over all my comrades there in warmer location before we land. You cannot hide it. And the point is that I think I have Muki Kakasani living there. He won't understand if I must tell him, hey man, we must break down your shack and move you, which has been done under the name of urban renewal. The Olympics in London, it was an urban renewal program. So invariably what happens, and whether it was in Manchester City where they built the new stadium in Manchester, the areas for urban renewal are the areas where the poor live. They live in the poor, derelict parts of the city, and those areas are then identified for urban renewal and therefore mass removals of those people. So it's a huge area and a huge challenge in this space. You know the report in Brazil already indicating the problems which was reported in their report of violations, of removals. And there is a strong monitoring of mismanagement of funds, violation of human rights, and it's going to be quite interesting to follow what has happened there. So overall, I think we did try, but mega events, as you've indicated, is about, for the international federations like FIFA, the IRB, it comes once every 4 years, and they have a target. For FIFA, the target for South Africa was $3.5 billion. And that target is pursued. They must deliver. If they don't reach the target, then for the next 4 years, they'll have financial problems until the next World Cup. And I think essentially why we were not given 2006 World Cup was about the confidence or lack of confidence that bringing the World Cup to Africa, maybe they will not reach their target. I think it was the financial considerations. I know we blame Dempsey and all of those things. There are other things that happen. But fundamentally, FIFA had a debt of almost 500 million. And so the choice was, do you come to South Africa and host the World Cup here, hoping that you'll wipe out your huge deficit and make a profit? Or do you go to the safe venue of Germany and then after that come to South Africa? And I think that was a serious consideration, that FIFA decided to go to the safe option of Germany. But we were so strong that it was not a straight line for Germany to the victory, and a lot of other things that happened. You may know that at one stage we wanted to go to court and take FIFA to court on the decision of 2006. But it was very clear to us, and our legal team told us, you cannot win the right to host in the court. What you can do, the court can nullify the decision to award to Germany, but then they will have to vote again. So you have put the 24 FIFA executive members on the stand, they've agreed, they've nullified the decision, and now you say, so you, the 24, go back there into that hall and now you vote for us. Is it going to happen? And we thought that after you put them under cross-examination, it'd probably be 24-0. And it was, I don't want to use the phrase, it was a winnable case, but we didn't move into the court to seek legal redress, and we closed the matter on that basis. And I think it shook FIFA enough that they accepted that the next World Cup must come to Africa. There was an injustice to Africa. Africa had waited 100 years. And I think the fact that the World Cup came to South Africa, this notion that Africans cannot deliver this complex, complicated event, it's difficult for them. The matches are going to start late. They are not going to compete the infrastructure. You must have a stab vest. You must have a bulletproof vest. You must have all these things. But also, brace yourself for huge financial losses. Brace yourself for attacks. And some of the members said, I'm not going to bring my wife because they will rape my wife. You know them. These were the problems that we had. Of course, I must say, to the credit of some of them, they actually came to apologize. To say, you know what, we're sorry. We said all these things about the people of this continent because we've never met people so warm and friendly, embracing, supportive, and we didn't know why we had all of these wrong perceptions. And some of them were big enough to apologize. But I think that killed this whole idea that this is the event for the European North. And so what happens after that is going to Brazil, 2014, 2018 is Russia, because the Russians had the same complaint. They say we are part of Europe, but nothing comes to us. It goes to Qatar, and it goes to the developing countries. And of course, there are a lot of other issues. So, besides the challenges that I think must be strengthened, not just in the organizing or delivery phase of the event, but prior to that, before international federations award the event, they must look at the national law and the constitution of that host country. Because there's no point you award the event and after you ask about gays and rights of gays and lesbians and whether they will be accepted and all sorts of other problems, the freedom of the press and other issues. Those things must be determined and be